one of the top conversations right now in the global health community is about the Ebola crisis. I really wanted to get your take both on, what do you see as some of the failings of the global health and global development community that allowed it to get to this point? How can we, use innovation, use new methods to both bring the problem under control now, but also as we look forward, what's going to be necessary, what sort of reckoning?
Yeah. Well, it's a big topic and it's a really important one. I mean, I do have to say there are a couple really, despite the challenges, and I was just discussing this here with someone that, good news and then real bad news. The good news is actually that some of the capability that we as a global health community have built around polio and polio eradication, or in our world, malaria and malaria control and elimination, are actually being redeployed very quickly in these countries using surveillance tools, using capabilities, using, kind of the emergency operations centers have actually been flipped into those to focus on Ebola. So that shows a set of capabilities and nimbleness, which I think is good. The second, though, on the bad side is I think we will see, and it's pretty clear, that the real impact here is actually going to be less on Ebola. It's going to be that more women and children will die in these countries than the number of people from Ebola, because there's no attention now on any other health issue. And so we're going to see women aren't able to go to clinics. We're seeing all sorts of that beginning to already happen, and that's where the real tragedy is also going to happen.
Yeah. So you brought up the idea of health systems, and I think that one of the things that the Ebola crisis has brought up is the need for stronger health systems. And I think one of the key challenges is the way global health is funded, which tends to be in a fairly siloed model. Organizations work on some of the big diseases, maybe partly because the funding is there. I'm curious if you see that as one of the key barriers, and what you think can be done as a major global health organization to sort of break down some of those barriers, to work with donors, to try to change some of the ways that health problems are being addressed, so we're really looking at the systemic underpinnings that can prevent a future crisis.
We, PATH, as the leading innovation group in global health, has really believed that it's very important to keep the innovation issues, though, on the agenda, particularly as we look at the post-2015 agenda, which will likely have a fair amount of focus on health systems. But how do we continue to innovate? Because health systems alone won't bend the curve to get us to where we need to be.
No, and I think this issue of innovation is critical. I think in global development, there's innovation sounds pretty sexy, and there's a lot of sort of buzz about, how can innovation help? But there's also not a ton of evidence or innovations that have been taken to a great scale, and so I think there's a little bit of a question about, what is the role of innovation? How do you actually put innovation to work?
Well, I would probably disagree with you. I think that there's a lot of evidence on where both technological innovation and social science innovation has really dramatically changed the outcomes. We've seen, last year, for instance, PATH's programs touched over 220 million people directly. So we see that scale, that's big scale. One of our small vaccine vial monitors, it reached its 5 billionth unit last quarter. That's with a B. So, we can see real evidence that has ended up seeing that reduction in child mortality over the last 20 years into 50%, seeing reduction of malaria in Zambia, 50%, and those are really due to innovative systemic changes or innovative technologies, and we certainly need to keep building that case. But I would say that what we need to do is make sure that we don't say it's all about the new cool thing, but how do we really see that cool stuff work, build the evidence that it works, and then if it does, adapt it for the right settings and then get it to the people that need it. So I would agree that we have a lot of work to do to get innovation to scale, and I'm obsessed with that problem. But I think that we have a lot of good evidence that it can scale, and when it does, it's super powerful.